Good Friday afternoon or evening. Again, maybe Saturday morning. How you doing? Victor, you're here?
I'm trying to finish my bite.
Here. Let me join you. We'll just sit here and eat for a minute. By the way, these things, if you've got them, you need to eat them. If you don't have them, you need to go buy them and then eat them. This is actually, okay, too much information, or maybe not. If you were here last week, you know that my mom died recently. This is from my mom's house. She has snacks to no end. Snacks everywhere. I have a big box of other kind of things that I don't need to be eating. These are really good. Oh, by the way, hi. How you doing? My name is Darren. This over here is Victor, and we're the podcast host of DevOps Paradox. And on Fridays, we do this live show. And hopefully everybody had a pretty reasonable week. My week was definitely better this week. I know you've been busy. Oh, I heard you pop a can. If you have your drink, please join us. I'm back in, I'm back to orange now. Here we go. There we go. I'm back to my orange. My wife had it back in stock, thankfully, finally. Coke. That means you're still working today.
That means that I still have,
You still have
in
4 more hours
interviewing.
of work today. Yes, interviewing.
Yeah.
By the way, in case people don't know, you are, how do we say this politely? Looking for a job? Looking for a new opportunity. Looking for a new opportunity.
That's the one. That's the one. Yes.
Okay. Anyway, we talked about we had a little bit better week this week. We're going to talk about some of our family, if you will, that had a really good week. We'll get to that in just a minute. But this week on the podcast, we talked about, what did we talk about? I edited it. I should know what we talked about. Oh yeah, the problems with microservices. There's quite a few problems with microservices, right? Number one, they exist.
Exactly. The existence is the biggest problem.
We didn't even talk about that on that episode. Let's talk about it here for just a second. The existence of microservices is a problem within itself.
Yeah.
Now,
it's a problem that solves more problems than it causes, but it's a problem by itself. Simply
correct.
Managing a fleet of applications is by definition harder than managing an application.
Yeah.
There's no way around that.
So if you're not doing microservices today and somebody is telling you that you have to do microservices because they read a blog post or they listened to a podcast, I'm not saying don't say no, but I'm saying question everything.
There are very good reasons why one should do microservices. The main very bad reason is just because they exist. Now, if they solve one of the problems you're having, yeah, go for it. But only in that case.
Yep. Know what you're getting into. There are no silver bullets.
On the other hand, how do you know what you're getting into until you try, right? Kind of reading blog posts, listening to people like us and what's not, that does not make anybody know what they're getting into. Eventually, you need to try it, right? And then see whether the effort is worth the investment.
And that's
at the end of the day, it's about that, right? Same thing like, hey, is Kubernetes good for me? Try it.
Maybe that's what
it takes 5 minutes to create a cluster in Google or AWS or Azure or whatever. Try it out.
That's what we should rename the podcast to. Try it.
Exactly.
Try it. Okay. And if you haven't listened to the podcast, oh, by the way, the podcast this week I edited a little bit differently. There was no transcript on purpose, mainly because I was running really late and I didn't edit it until Tuesday. It comes out on Wednesdays. So there was no transcript this week, and I edited in a much faster way, which I actually liked a lot better, but there's no transcript. Can you tell I keep saying that there was no transcript? I'm holding on to that for dear life. I still think we need a transcript. I still think it's smart, but the episode that's coming up this week probably won't have a transcript either. I'm just warning you now. If transcripts are important to you, go over into the Slack workspace and in the podcast channel and say, don't ever do another episode without a transcript. Or
I mean,
or we,
knowing you probably it will be more difficult not to do transcripts in your case than to do them, because you're probably going to not be able to sleep for a whole night after
hey man,
deciding not to do it, right?
after everything that my body's been through in the past month, sleep is one thing I am greatly enjoying right now. So a transcript can wait for a week or two. So hopefully, if people are, I mean, the transcripts are important to us in general as well, but for a couple weeks, it's probably not a big deal. Dominic, hello to you as well. Hopefully, everybody's having a great weekend already. Speaking of great weekends. Oh, you have pizza too. Oh, I wish. Actually, I'm going to get pizza this weekend. That's not what we're talking about. I think ETL and Ben are going to get pizza this weekend. They raised 21 million in addition to the 4 million they raised last year. So they're at 25 million raise.
I think that they can afford many pizzas, more than one pizza. Let me tell you that.
I think they can get 2 pizzas now. I think they're going to be legal to do 2 pizzas right now. They're on their weekend. So we had ETL on from Commodore on episode 98. So if you want to go back and listen to that and understand what we're talking about, it's good to see friends and family do well here. So congratulations to those guys. That's a good story. We see lots of sad stories, but it's also good to see a story like this. So,
but it's on a subject completely unrelated with Commodore ETL and all those things, and completely unrelated. I have impression that kind of VCs are throwing money in anything that has security name in it. Kind of like, if you want to get funding, put security.
I agree. Security is one of the hotnesses right now, I guess. It's like what was it? It was the old Zoolander, right? It's so hot, or he's so hot. It's security's it.
It's not. No, I disagree there. Security is not hot at all. Vast majority of people do not care about security, do not want to read about security, do not want to have anything to do with security. So it's not hot or whatever it's pronounced. Now it brings money because everybody needs it. And the needs are very different today than they were in the past. So there is a huge market for security, but it's not hot. I mean, nobody cares about, not nobody. Majority of us do not care about security. I dare you to go to some common developer conference, something that is not specific to any specific subject, and have a talk about security and tell me how many people come.
Nobody. Or very few.
Very few, exactly.
Yeah.
If you're lucky, and then it's kind of in-person conference, and there is a limited seating, and then you will get people who didn't manage to get a seat in the other
else.
talk.
Yeah,
exactly. My first talk I ever gave was that kind of like. At the same time, in my talk, I think that it was done north. Kind of like, man, nobody's gonna come to my talk, and I got half of the audience because there wasn't enough space for his.
That's that was like going to the first few AWS reInvents, and you try to get into a session with Adrian Cocroft, which at the time he was still with Netflix, or any of the big names that were back then. You'd walk in, they turn you away. You go to another one, they turn you away, and finally you get to, hey, here's an introduction to AWS DynamoDB. Okay. But anyway, that's it. So
but
anyway,
that's because you made the rookie mistake. In conferences like that, mm-hmm. You choose the track that has the most talks you're interested in. You go there, you sit down, and you don't get up. Bring an empty bottle with you.
In case you don't understand what the empty bottle means, that's to relieve yourself, not to, because you've already emptied the bottle. Okay, we won't go any further. That's 12-year-old humor there that we don't need to be talking about. Speaking of not 12-year-old humor, I was actually sort of shocked. Hashi finally announced 1.0 GA. I was shocked. I mean, not in a bad way, But I was just sort of expecting it to never go 1.0. Why? Why does it need to go 1.0? I mean, I know why, but I thought it was funny.
Why?
Why did I think it was funny?
No. Why? I thought you when you said I know why, I thought you meant why it didn't go to 1.0.
Well, no, I think
before.
the reason why I think it went 1.0 is because there's probably certain people that will never use a product that's not at least 1.0.
Correct.
That's the only reason. But that also means that they have not been around Hashi for any amount of time.
Yep. There is also a practical reason for that, right? Once you jump, and I'm now talking about strict semantic versioning, right? Once you jump to 1.0, you cannot increase anymore the minors without being backwards compatible. Then it's a real game, right?
Yeah.
If it's 0.1, you can go to 0.2 and break backwards compatibility. That's okay.
Yep. So, and they fixed state interop, which was interesting. So state is now cross-compatible, backported from 14, 15, and 1. Remote state, this is the more interesting one. The remote state's backported from 12, 13, 14, 15, and 1. State's important. From a Terraform perspective, state's very important.
Oh, yeah.
Upgrade experiences, moving from 15 to 1. You can upgrade to a new Terraform version. Workflows will continue to be operational. No requirement for upgrading tools, refactoring, or other changes. Extended maintenance periods, 18 months. They do stuff slow there. I think in the right way, slow. And the SDK is being EOL'd quickly, end of July. And what it means. This is the funny one. For many of the folks that have contributed to the project or have been part of more than 100 million downloads. Do you want to comment on that one? No, you just want to eat pizza. That's fine. 100 million downloads. Impressive. We approach product versions and the 1.0 designation in a consistent and transparent manner based on 4 key requirements as documented back in the Packer release time. I didn't read that, so.
Stating the number of downloads is a sneaky marketing thing that I don't like, because what really matters is number of users. I don't know.
Yeah.
Probably I made so far at least a couple of hundred downloads myself.
I know I have as well. Because I'll wipe systems, I put it on a new system. I've got Ansible installing Terraform for me. I know that smells bad, but it's what it is. Yeah. Okay, anyway. Terraform 1.0.0 announced this week.
Well done.
Congratulations to Hashi. Next up, there's a new project from Tekton called Tekton Chains. This is a teaser for this coming week's podcast. We actually talked about this article a little bit on this podcast this week, the one that's coming out next Wednesday, which will be Wednesday the, 16th. Supply chain is a big deal. During the time that we will not name during 2020, supply chains in the physical world were a big deal because trees couldn't be cut down to be shipped to processing plants to be turned into toilet paper to be shipped to a distribution center to actually go buy toilet paper. That's supply chain. But software is very different. And we talked about a couple of other articles. And we got a lot of links coming up in that episode on Wednesday. But Tekton Chains is a new project to help capture metadata for CI/CD pipeline executions. Now, you've used Tekton a heck of a lot more than me. A lot more. Does this even matter to you?
I don't know yet because I haven't tried it yet, so don't know yet.
Okay. I think it does matter at a high level because it gets down to this point of tamper-proof and activity ledger type things, right? This is audit. All the buzzwords, this is audit. So how do I know what I built has not been tampered with? And that's a big deal.
And eventually it will matter to vast majority of users, mostly because Tekton users are usually not devs, right? So it's usually very small number of people in a company setting up, creating pipelines, what's not for everybody else, right? Because Tekton is far from being ever user-friendly in terms, hey, developer, use Tekton as your pipeline engine. That's not gonna happen anytime soon. So from that perspective, you can say, hey, it matters for the vast majority of users because those few probably care about those things.
Yeah. So you just install it into the cluster, and then you can run some things, and off it goes. And they're using Cosine under the hood. The guys from SigStore, which is Cosine's one of the tools out of SigStore. And ask for a password, pops it in, and then you do the credentials, and off you go. And then that's it. So this is the first one, the first release. It says they're going to also be improving integration with other supply chain security projects. So SigStore, Intoto, and then they're doing some stuff with pipelines. I'm not even going to try that word. Hermecton? Hermetic build execution. Look, we already have enough problems with naming things in what we do. Don't make it harder for us, please. Come on. Hermetic builds? Okay, wait. All right, let's see how they have it defined. I'll give them hermetic builds guarantee all inputs have been explicitly declared ahead of time, providing for a more auditable supply chain. Why don't you just call it predefined instead of hermetic?
To me, what is curious about this, with Tekton, this announcement, is that it is yet another proof in a way how the direction that Tekton is doing or going to. It's really not trying that much to be a solution that people use directly, but still more like a building block for others, right? Because Tekton has so many unresolved issues for the end user, right? And to me, focusing on this just means that solidifies the notion that they're more into building blocks and there should be a provider on top of Tekton that ends up being a platform or product that others use.
We're still, how can I say this nicely? We're still at the front side of, or the beginning parts of, to where we're just now getting the building blocks. We've gone from the raw building blocks, thinking Legos for a moment, and now we've got walls, and we're able to piece together parts of walls together. So we're just beyond the block, but we still don't, it's not like bringing in and it's completely in. I'll put it this way. It cost $800 to buy I think it's $800 to buy the Millennium Falcon Lego set. I'd pay somebody $900 just to assemble it for me and just hand it to me. Right? If you enjoy building things yourself, this is like me and working outside in the yard. I don't like doing the yard work. I pay somebody to do my yard work. It's a small yard, but regardless, I don't like doing it. So I pay somebody else to do it. I'll be glad when we actually, for a lot of these things, it's not just a building block.
Yeah, eventually, not eventually. We already have Jenkins X and OpenShift pipelines, right? That are being that it's more like conceptually, right? Are you building a software for others to polish, or you're building software for the end user, right? And Tekton is in the former category. There's nothing wrong with it, right? It's more like kind of how do you see yourself getting to the end product?
Yeah, and that's fine. I mean, it's again in the early times you're just trying to figure out what's going on. So
exactly.
At least you have options. The good thing about blocks is you have options.
Oh yeah.
Speaking of options, I saw this week, also from Google. KF, talking about Cloud Foundry on Kubernetes. That's about all I can
Makes
say.
makes perfect business sense.
Makes perfect business, keyword business sense.
Yeah, I chose my words wisely. Simply, Google is all about Kubernetes, kind of like they're not trying to push non-Kubernetes stuff in their cloud, right? I mean, some database services, but basically for applications, it's Kubernetes, and that's about it. And hey, the world didn't start today. Vast majority of applications needs to be transferred somehow to Kubernetes. Now we can talk for long whether you should transfer as is, like in this case, cloud. What was it you said?
It's KF. KF is
Cloud
the
Foundry, exactly.
Cloud Foundry, yeah.
Whether you want to transfer Cloud Foundry apps as they are, or you want to redesign them, that could be a separate discussion. But for the vast majority of people, it makes perfect sense.
Yeah, I mean the way
Business.
the way that they built it here is the KF primitives, meaning from Cloud Foundry, spaces, bindings, and services are implemented as CRDs and controllers.
Yeah.
So if it works, this is what we were talking about earlier. Try it. If it works for you, no problems, then you can push off that do we rewrite it or not to much later down the path.
Exactly.
So it appears to be a drop. KF seems to be a drop-in replacement for CF. Now this is an interesting pattern. I'm beginning to see this pattern emerge a lot more, which isn't surprising. But how do I interact with Kubernetes as if it is X? In this case, the X is Cloud Foundry.
Yeah. This just shows the flexibility of Kubernetes. You can make a custom resource and a few lines of code to create a CLI, basically to provide similar, if not the same, experience in Kubernetes to whatever it was you have right now.
Yeah, and that's pretty cool. I mean, this is a logical change. Now the question will be, who's going to do this next to displace Heroku and the other PaaSes?
I think that there is a hidden, not necessarily that public, but there is a hidden run to do that. Many are in that space, starting though.
Yeah. So anyway, if you're on Cloud Foundry and you've been trying to figure out, I want to get to Kubernetes and I want to do it fast just to see if it works, this might be your see if it works. Even though you may not be with Google, it may be worth at least a look. Okay.
But that's the decision making, right? Kind of like you're a Cloud Foundry guy, you are about to choose which cloud provider you're going to go to, right? You did not choose yet. If you chose, you're likely not going to change.
No.
But you are making that decision right now. That's the business behind it.
Yep. And this paragraph right here is sort of interesting as well. Where I was looking at here. So routing and ingress is handled by Anthos Service Mesh, which is their Istio based, and then Tecton is doing all the build for KF. So if you're used to CF, what was it, CF deploy? I don't even remember all the commands anymore. They've taken the tools. This is the part about APIs that we've talked about. If we can get the APIs right, we could care less about the implementation details.
Correct.
That's what this is. They've repurposed the Kubernetes API to run Cloud Foundry applications.
If it looks the same, if it smells the same, then it must be the same.
You would hope so.
I mean, we know that Cloud Foundry is a waste. You either keep it as is or you move somewhere else.
Correct.
Nobody's going to invest in Cloud Foundry right now. Hopefully.
Yeah. Speaking of not investing in things. Oh, wait, did I say that out loud? We have a handful of Docker things. Now, DockerCon was last week before last.
Yeah.
Something wrong. So there's been a few things that I've noticed because they recapped, they being Docker/Mirantis recap this past week. But here's one that wasn't on their recaps that we're going to look at. Did you know this?
Oh, yes, I knew. I cannot stand the syntax.
Really? You don't like this? Why not?
No. Even in Bash, I don't like it.
Why not? Okay, so because all right. So if you've watched any of Victor's videos, you know he loves to do and slash, and then he goes to the next line.
Yeah. To me, that simply makes so much more sense.
Okay. By the way,
I don't know. I'm biased, right? It's probably what
biased.
I'm used to, right? It's
Yes.
what I'm used to, nothing else.
I will warn you right now. I've got a storm coming through, so if you lose me, Victor, you can keep talking. So if I disappear, that's what's going on. But I should be back. Okay, so you don't like multi-line. Okay.
No, I like multi-lines. Line. I just got so spoiled with Kubernetes, YAML, what's not that if it was a run and then pipe and just indent by 2 as they did in this example, I would be fine.
Yeah.
I don't like out.
Okay. All right. Also got a couple of things here. This was the big one that came out this week. The auto build service is going away on June 18th, meaning whenever that is. Next Friday, I think. Because if you haven't been keeping up with what's been going on with crypto miners, it's basically this. So now, because this is how I used to build all of my Docker images.
Yeah.
Excuse me, all of my images that were hosted on Docker Hub. That's so hard to say. It's like we're having to break ourselves. It's like, oh, let me just Google that, right? We turned Docker into sort of a verb, and it became all parts.
Knowing that they've been restricting free tier heavily in the past,
Yeah,
I cannot not interpret this as, this is a very good excuse to remove that one as well.
yeah. And again, that's
Because
only
kind
if
of
you're
like,
using...
hey, yeah, free, but if you're targeted by crypto miners or whatever, solve it. So solve the problem. I don't know how you solve the problem. Solve the problem. Don't remove it. Don't solve it by removing the service. I mean, it only gives me one more reason not to use Docker Hub. That's the only thing.
Yeah. I can't judge them on this. It's completely makes sense, especially for the free tier. If you're paying though, you can still use the auto build service. And what's their low tier? $7 a month or something? It was pretty cheap.
Yeah.
If I remember right.
It's pretty cheap.
So
the thing is that all those services, almost every service today has a free tier, and the logic is always the same. We give for free stuff because that is paid eventually by our users, right? Those that are paying customers. The problem Docker Hub has is that it doesn't have enough paying customers. It never did. And basically then I understand those decisions, kind of like we need to reduce the cost of our service because we never managed to sell it significantly, and we managed to convince the whole world to use the free version. But I still want to say that the solution to that is figure out how to sell it. What is the compelling reason for somebody to buy it instead of removing free tier features?
Yeah. And they are still covering, if you're part of the open source program, it'll be there. You got to do it on a case-by-case basis, which is more than reasonable. That's so basically everybody gets shut off next Friday at some point. Ugh. And then if you were using it as part of open source, just reach out to them. All good. So anyway, auto build's going away. Next up, Docker scan to Linux. Now, I was sort of doing this just with, this is obviously the SNCC integration. I was doing SNCC binaries directly on stuff that I was using, but now I could just use Docker scan. which is using SNCC under the hood. So that's coming to Docker now, or excuse me, to Linux. I was having this conversation with Victor yesterday, day before yesterday. I was asking him, okay, have you done anything with, we were talking specifically about Docker Compose, which we'll get to in a minute, on Linux. And he says, no, I've only been dealing with Mac, or maybe Windows too. I can't remember what your
Mac and Windows, yeah.
Mac and Windows, both. Which is in Docker Desktop, which has everything. But Linux has always been a step behind, other than the server side. Right? The server side has always been probably better. Could I say this? Could it be better than what's in Docker Desktop or comparable?
Yeah, I mean, it's simply that's the real Docker, right? Docker Desktop is a Docker in a virtual machine, right? So there is additional complexity, additional work, and all those things. And I think that Docker always saw Linux as too small of a user base, which I guess makes sense. And especially now that end user base on Linux is very small, and on servers, Docker is gone, right? Why would they?
Right. Well, and my why is I'm using it as part of a Jenkins agent. Right. If I had a spare Mac or a spare Windows machine laying around, I would be more than happy to use Docker Desktop. But right now, all I have is a Linux machine. So that's why I was asking. So anyway, Docker Scan being supported on Linux. That's great. Final one was sort of the recap. Have you updated to 3.4 yet? Did you update that?
No. Actually, my Docker Desktop is going insane for 2 months now. It just continuously says that I should download the update, and it simply doesn't work.
Oh, really? So yours is like toast. Okay.
Mine is toast. So I might wait until I get a new Mac to upgrade Docker.
And do a fresh image and just go from there.
But
yeah, so
mine is a bit special case. I do not use Docker for anything except building images for demos and stuff like that, and running containers. So I'm not leveraging the features. Doesn't really matter much which version I'm running.
And I'm doing the exact opposite. I'm doing that, plus I'm testing out some of the features just to figure out how to do certain things. Volume management, I could care less about. It's nice. At least it's better than what it was. Actually, I don't even think it was there before. But then the Compose v2, which now turns Docker-Compose into Docker Space Compose. And in fact, if you haven't watched Brett Fisher's video from yesterday, which was the 10th of June, that's all he talks about. The whole episode, which I need to go back and rewatch a couple things. So this is starting to roll out. And then you have to actually enable it, though, to get it. And then skipping updates. We've heard feedback how to skip this update introduced in 3.3 was confusing and missed the mark. Yeah, okay. So anyway, they fixed that. So that was the Docker Desktop changes for this release. So, joy, happy, I guess. If you're muted if you're talking, I can't see you.
Yeah, no, I wasn't talking, but yeah.
Okay. So I didn't find a whole lot of tools this week. I found a couple and it was like, yeah, they're not that cool. But I found this one buried somewhere. The easiest way to create a README. This had me... I mean, how many times do you go to a repository? Because this is me, right? When I'm trying to find tools on GitHub or GitLab or wherever they may be hosted, I'm looking at the README, right? Because that's usually, I need some information to decide if it's going to make the cut or not. And sometimes all you get is the title with the bar, what do you call that? The horizontal line underneath. And that's it.
Yeah.
Not real useful. By the way, those are the majority of my repositories. But I saw this product, and it gives you the ability to write and piece together what a README should look like. It's at readme.so. Let's click on Get Started. So because I'm zoomed in, it looks really bad. So let me zoom out just a little bit here. Okay, it's a little more. Am I at 100? No, that's 100 right there. So title and description. Let's say I want to put in an FAQ. So there's the FAQ section. And then let's say I want to add in a license and whatever.
Yeah.
So these are all the sections. So then, let's do one more just because I can. Let's do running tests because we all should be running tests, right? And just assuming that this is the order I want. Oh, you know what? Really, no, I'm going to move the tests above. So now I got license at the bottom. Okay, so let's download this. And there's my MD. Here, let's do this live. Let's go to... Well, you're not going to see it because I'm just sharing, well, rats. Hang on a second. I'll have to share something different. Give me a second. How do you spell VS Code? V. Okay.
Are you asking a SERP to tell you how to spell something?
Yes. Okay. So let me stop my sharing here real quick, and let me share a new screen if I can find it. My window is, here's the README. I'm assuming that can be seen, except I have to share it again. So here's the title, the FAQ, the running tests, and the license.
Nice.
This is a pretty nifty little tool, I think, because there's things you will forget to do. Now, if you maybe had some other tooling to help you remember how to do it, sure. But
you know that I always have a complaint, right?
I know. Go ahead.
So I would really prefer if it's already kind of like templated, because once I start picking and choosing, I can just as fast write the same thing myself, right? Running tests. Kind of if they create the templates, I'm kind of like, hey, open source project or open source 1, 2, 3, kind of like 3 different templates, stuff like that, so that you get all the shenanigans, no matter. And then, in a commonly done way, hey, this type of project, this type of README, whatever, usually starts with this, goes to this, blah, 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 blah. Some kind of template would be nice.
And let's go back here. So the author is Catherine Peterson. It is on GitHub. Or is it on GitHub? Yes, it is. Let's see. Let's take a look at it. That's the one thing I did not take a look at. So here is the app itself.
Yep.
Contributing. I wonder if she used this to create her README. Okay. 28 contributors. What's
that's a significant number.
Yeah,
I did not expect that. I expected her only.
Yeah, MIT license. So
nice. Well done.
I think it's great, and let's go look at it on Product Hunt real quick, just because we can. And we can say, what is she looking for here? Okay, go away. Yeah, I mean, it's a great project.
Nice.
I'm not signed in to look at it, but
you will later.
Yeah, I will. Okay. We looked at that. Let's move to your videos for this week, because we need to cut out a little bit early today. Not very early. How to high availability Kubernetes. This was a great explanation for people that have never thought about Kubernetes, especially when you get into split brain.
Yeah. I mean, actually, the whole idea. I mean, I was asked to do a video on that subject in a number of comments, but it mostly what made me bump it up, kind of like, and do it sooner than later, was a conversation about, hey, what is so great about GK compared to Linode or DigitalOcean? Doesn't matter. Kind of, I'm not trying now to attack one of them. Kind of like high availability. And then I started explaining, and hey, the guy said kind of like, why don't you convert this into a video? But that's basically the major difference between small providers and big providers. HA.
HA is hard. If you think just adding a second server makes it HA, watch the video.
And then we have the case of close to being impossible to make it HA on on-prem. Even kind of like big guys, huge guys, kind of like huge enterprises cannot have 3 data centers geographically collocated without big latency. Kind of like that thing alone is close to impossible in any on-prem situation unless you really have money you don't know how to spend. And on top of that also, I think that one of the problem with HAs in on-prem is that we were not thinking in this way in the past. Whomever was building data centers was much more focused how to build data centers across the globe than having them close to each other, right? It was more focused. Hey, if you have a data center in US, the second one should be in Europe, and the third one should be in Australia, right? At least among the companies I worked with, it's always that the case. More data centers means more continents rather than proximity.
Right, but that's not high availability. That's disaster recovery.
Yeah. I mean, there are advantages to that. Let's make sure you can maybe have proximity to your users means also affects latency of different type than what I was talking there. But there are some advantages. But yes, it was more for disaster recovery than anything else.
Well, okay, so how would you classify it? Is HA a subset of DR? Or is DR a subset of HA?
No, I would say I think that either is a subset of anything else, right?
Okay.
You're either available or you're not available. Now, whether you can recover from a disaster is a separate thing that is, equally important or unimportant. Doesn't depend much whether you're HA or not, right? You can have one data center only and still have a disaster recoveries in place.
Right. Okay. So if you're trying to figure out how to do high availability with Kubernetes, this goes beyond just Kubernetes, though. This is a good primer on HA in general.
Yes, with some changes. Maybe, outside Kubernetes, you might not need 3 of something, maybe 2 of something in some cases is enough, right?
Yeah. Okay. And the second video that you did this week was multi-stage builds.
Yes.
To this day, when I tell people about multi-stage builds, they look at me sideways because they went, "What? What is that?"
It's probably the feature I use the most. It's kind of like it has a special place in my heart. That feature. It's absolutely awesome.
Why does it have a special place in your heart? Because that's showing great love that you don't even show me. So,
the ability that I can say Docker container, Docker image build, or Canico something, doesn't matter, right? Doesn't have to be even Docker. And I get the binary, I run tests, I do everything prior to building the image itself. Is absolutely awesome, right? I can skip in pipelines, for example, I can skip thinking about, hey, I need a node or a container with Node.js and then this, and then I need to execute this step, that step. It just simplifies. You can even say that in a very simplistic from a very simplistic view, Docker multi-stage builds allow you to have a single command that does your whole simple CI pipeline. Multi-stage builds are not a pipeline, but in your pipeline later on, you have a single command and you have something close to a CI process, right?
absolutely. And if it's in a lower environment and you're just trying to get it built and shipped, a simple Docker build, Docker push will get you there. I mean,
Exactly.
That's all you need.
And
That's the only thing you're missing in the multi-stage is the push.
Exactly. Yeah, build push. And it works from my laptop, it works from pipelines, it works from wherever. Now, that's not the whole process.
No.
You do things after pushing an image, but almost everything that is happening before building the image is in there.
Yeah. I mean, if I just need to build the image and I'd like to run the test, I can do that. And not having to, like you were saying, piece together the tooling to do the build. It's just yet another image. I really love multi-stage.
And like a few weeks ago, actually, I was looking at some case whom I'm not going to name, and again the same story from years ago. Hey, my images are a couple of gigs. Why? Oh, because I need a compiler. I need this. I need that in my image to do this. No, that's multi-stage. It gives you a small image at the end of the process.
Or at least you can control the image. You can control it.
Yeah.
You don't need, let's say we'll use the JDK. I don't need the full JDK to actually run a Java-based image.
Exactly.
I just need the JRE. So
exactly. And so the point is that all the things, if you want to do additional things like let's say build a jar, right? Just to simplify it, you can do it without multi-stage build. So multi-stage is not helping you, enabling you to do builds and run tests and stuff like that. It enables you to do the same things that you can do without multi-stage builds, but as a result, you end up with a small image instead of a big image that contains everything that you need to do.
And that's the key part, is you were saying, okay, I've got a 1 gig, 2 gig image at the end, but as you go through the video, you were using Alpine, I think, as your base, so you ended up with, instead of an 800 meg video or 800 meg image, it was, what, 70 or something?
Yeah,
17,
yeah.
It was
Yeah.
orders of magnitude smaller.
And of those 17, kind of like probably half of that is Alpine itself. If I switch to Scratch, it would be like 5 or something like that.
Yeah, nothing.
5 megs.
So if you are building images and you're not using multi-stage, and you weren't even aware of it. Again, I still see people today that are not aware of multi-stage. Go read about it. Go watch the video, then go read about it. It could be life-changing, not only for you, but for the administrators of your registry.
And it's agnostic to Docker. That's important thing
Very
I
important.
think that many people do not know. You can run it with Docker binary, but you can run it with others. You can run it with, Kaneko, right? So it's more about definition format than the executable itself.
Yep. Multi-stage, good thing. Okay, we are probably, do you have anything else going on? Like I said, you have calls, so we're going to probably wrap up a little bit early. The episode will be out next Wednesday. We're recording with somebody this coming week that'll be out the week after. In other words, we don't have a big backlog. So if you have some, much like Victor has been asking for recommendations of what to do videos on, if you want to have some input into what are you looking for in a podcast episode, go over to the podcast channel over in the Slack workspace that's coming up right underneath Victor now. You see it? It's going right past you. And it's now it's going under me. Okay, so anyway, if you're not part of the Slack workspace, go sign up for the Slack workspace. It's crawling by right now. Go to the podcast channel and put in some ideas. We have some ideas, but we'd like to, again, we've gone down the microservices path. This week was the last of the microservices. We got a couple of ideas, but it's getting into summertime, and we would actually like to get a little bit more recorded to have ahead of time. So when Victor goes on his August, September, October, November vacation, I'm not having to get him off vacation to record. He doesn't go for that long. But some people do, don't they? I can't relate.
Yeah. And I keep changing companies, so I will not have vacation days. Poor me.
I'll let that ride. Okay. Anything else? I think that's probably it. I think
That's it, I
Dominic's
think.
called it right. Enjoy the weekend. Enjoy your weekend. If you have had a good week, go enjoy the weekend. If you have family, I'm going to start crying again. If you have parents, go hug your parents. Even if you're upset at your parents, go hug your parents if you can. All right. That'll be it for me for crying today. No, it won't. I'll keep crying. And again, I'll keep talking about it. I love my mom. I miss her, but yeah, that's what happens when you get older. You know, sometimes you just die. Boy, that's a real bummer way to end this, isn't it? Let's think of something more happy. We've already done our orange. I don't know. Go hug your kids. Go hug your parents. Enjoy some Coca-Cola. Have your favorite
Okay.
orange drink. Whatever it is. By the way, if you haven't subscribed, go ahead and click on the subscribe button. If you're watching it on YouTube, like on a big desktop, you should see it right underneath Victor. And also, we keep forgetting to do this during. Click on the thumbs up over there. Right, just click on.
Yeah.
It's probably that direction. No, there we go. It's probably that direction. Click on that thumbs up. We should do that at the beginning and not at the end, because I want to try to game the algorithm just a little bit, see what would happen. But it doesn't matter. Okay. Anyway, thanks everybody for hanging out with us live. If you were watching the replay, thanks, and we'll talk to you again next week. I think that's it. It is it. So we can really leave now.